Coreview Way. I'm Coach Mary, and welcome to this month's Destressing the Holidays webinar. Over the course of the next several moments, we're going to discuss a preparation strategy. Thanksgiving was 2 weeks from yesterday, and that kind of catches a lot of us off guard of like, how do I get ready? Well, I want you to sit back and relax. Take a moment, get out a pen, pencil, piece of paper, pour a cup of coffee or get a nice bubbly water, and just take notes so that you are prepared for the upcoming biggest meal of the year for most of us. I don't want you to fret about the turkey, or the temptations of Thanksgiving. I'm speaking from the bottom of my heart. When I was in business as a professional baker, I watched all of the public come into the bakery a little panic-stricken often about, I'm still working, the kids are just now out of school, we're having all this company, I don't know what I'm going to do in order to be organized for Thanksgiving. And I would say to them, it's just a day, but it's a really special day to enjoy. So don't fret. We would take care of things at the bakery, just as now I want you to be able to take care of things in your home. Over the course of the next several minutes, my conversation is going to give you some ideas about creating a practice of gratitude for yourself and to express with others. How to be better prepared as a strong individual, maintaining your healthy outlook for your life, not to get derailed by a holiday. How to encourage storytelling, acknowledge and then how to avoid your triggers for maybe some unhealthy behaviors, and then talk about some healthier benefits of Thanksgiving, and then we'll close with some tips and substitutions from my kitchen to yours. Thanksgiving is filled with a host of stressors. There is the grocery shopping. Lord knows, we already are being told smaller sized turkeys are going to be in short supply. The meal preparation, we want everything to be perfect. There is the tendency for some of us to overeat. Some of us also overindulge in maybe the sweets or alcohol. Some families may have uncomfortable conversations annually. And then there are those of us who live with a high sense of needing to please. The stressors create these symptoms. It's easy to overbuy, and now you have all this food. You may have gone over your budget. You may have more food than you really need to feed the 12 people to come. Now you could actually feed 45. And then the high need for everything to be perfect. Where does that come from? Why on Thanksgiving does everything need to be perfect? We experience food comas. We have a tendency to drink a little bit more wine or alcoholic beverages. The dessert table and the appetizer table are temptations that when we're nervous, we just can't seem to stay out of the dip bowl. And again, not only does everything have to be perfect, we need to be right in how we're creating everything. Trying every dish is a tendency that is a symptom, so we don't disappoint. We can't disappoint Aunt Betty. She only makes this once a year. What do we do with those symptoms? Well, before we get started, I want you to really take note of this saying, gratitude is the inward feeling of kindness received. Thankfulness is the natural impulse to express that feeling. Yeah, Thanksgiving is following that impulse. You know, Thanksgiving is actually this coach's most favorite holiday of all the year. It doesn't have the commercialization around it. It's a time for gathering. It's a time to share with others. So let's move forward and see how we can create a healthier experience this holiday season with Thanksgiving of 2021. Beginning with managing our expectations. 3 areas I'm about to cover are self-gratitude, gratitude expressions, and how to enjoy a healthier experience. Let me take a moment. Just as you see the geese, this flock of geese in this photo, flying across the sun, it's cyclical. Mother Nature has its cycles. They're very similar to humans' nature with the cycles with Thanksgiving. How is it that geese always know to go north or south at the calendar time of the year? How is it that they can stay on course, so ready? It's in their DNA. Why is it that we as humans have a tendency to get off course? It is my belief as a coach that one of those reasons is that we struggle on how to actually manage our own personal expectations. I'd like to begin with the practice of self-gratitude. You may already meditate, you may do yoga, you may journal, but practicing self-gratitude on a daily basis is a practice that will strengthen your resolve to live the healthiest, happiest lifestyle you possibly can ever imagine. So as I move forward, maybe write down, how is it are you currently practicing self-gratitude? What are the practices you do? Take note on how often you do that, and then take note of how you feel whenever you do that. If this is new to you, here are some tips for beginning a self-gratitude practice. Beginning with, I'm grateful for 3 things I hear, 3 things I smell, 3 things I see, and 3 things I touch or feel, or 3 things I taste. My first 5 tips are all around coming into a deepened awareness with your senses. Each individual that we celebrate Thanksgiving or any day with have those same 5 senses. So as you become in greater awareness of how are your senses working for you as a health tool, that will help you be more present for those that you share the Thanksgiving holiday with. Picking 3 things is a general rule of thumb. Counting to 3 is easy, but we also can remember 3 things. So I would suggest, as an exercise, to write down your 5 senses and then write 3 things that you're grateful for. But number 6 and number 7 deepen our self-gratitude practice. I'd like you to think about the color of blue. Where in your home or where in the out of doors do you see the color of blue? Or what are 3 things that are blue that you can be grateful for? And the reason I use the color blue out of all of the colors in the rainbow is blue means openness. It is open spaces. It connects with our intuition and imagination. Blue represents those deep meanings of wisdom and confidence and stability. Think of the sky and think of the sea. So when we practice gratitude, thinking in the term of blue, that color of blue, it really helps us ground ourselves into that infinite potential of faith and intelligence. Then the last one, and you can see I have it in large letters and bold letters, open a can of beans. Oh, you say, Mary, what do you mean by opening a can of beans as a practice of self-gratitude? Well, I want you to get a can of whatever one of your favorite cans of beans. It can be baked beans, it could be white beans or black beans. Grab a can opener and sit down at your dinner table. Open that can of beans. Do not dump them into a bowl. Do not heat them. and just start to take a few thoughtful mouthfuls of whatever that bean is. And as you eat that can of beans, whether you finish it or not, the experience will elicit other foods that you wish you were eating. And practicing self-gratitude with the understanding that you have the ability, you have the means to feed yourself in those meals of foods of preference over a can of beans, strengthens your understanding and gratefulness for all of the food that you have at your access. It can also elicit an awareness of how grateful you are for that filled pantry and refrigerator, that you live a life with food security, and recognizing that not all have food security at this time of Thanksgiving. So deepening your awareness to your food before that big meal at Thanksgiving by taking a couple of mouthfuls of canned beans, be thankful for the meal you're about to enjoy with others. Gratitude for others is an immense opportunity to really express unconditionally. 4 areas that I suggest you consider giving some thought around is, who would you like to express some gratitude to? So whether you create a gift box, and you can make it and have fun with this exercise. Create it as fancy and frilly or as plain and simple and minimalist as the person that you're going to express the gratitude to. Write down on small slips of colored paper what you are thankful for that person. What does that person mean in your life? And then wrap it up and just leave it in their mailbox or at their front step. Gifts of unconditional sharing bring such great love to another. Oftentimes, when we express our gratitude to another, they may not even recognize or realize how much they have played a role in your life. Only when we express our gratitude to them are they able to share in that relationship deeper. Similarly, a gratitude letter or a gratitude visit are opportunities to express yourself in another way. Writing a letter as if you are actually having a conversation with the person. Call them by first name. Thank them in that, just as if they were sitting across the table from you, and write with that fluidity, with that warmth. Should you knock on a person's door just to say, hey, I just stopped by today. Part of my gratitude practice and preparation of Thanksgiving is to say, thank you for being you. If I'm having a rough day and I think of your smile, it makes me feel better. Again, warmly look at that person in the face, in the eye, give them a nod of meaning, and you will literally make their day special. And when we give of ourselves to others, being grateful for them, we actually are giving ourselves the biggest gift, because we get to receive their expression back to us. See, gratitude with others is a two-way street. So I ask, as you go forward over the next several days leading up to Thanksgiving, take a moment and reflect on how you are expressing gratitude first to yourself and then to another. Okay, in managing these expectations, gratitude is a really great place to anchor ourselves in, being grateful for ourselves and for others that are in our life. But setting ourselves up for a healthier experience is even a greater place to manage our expectations. So think in the past when you go to Thanksgiving dinner, How do you prepare yourself to that meal? Are you all in? It's like, no matter what, I'm all in. I'm eating some of everything. And then you have these regretful thoughts the next day or even later in the day. Here are 7 tips for that healthier experience. First, really eat breakfast. Start yourself out with some kind of protein in your breakfast also. Protein makes us feel fuller longer as opposed to starting out with carbs. So get that breakfast in and then drink a couple glasses of water before you go to wherever you're going to have your Thanksgiving meal. Then know yourself. I invite you on Thanksgiving morning to really set up at minimum 15 minutes to sit back and meditate. Go back to earlier in my presentation on that self-gratitude on those tips and work your way through some of those prompts, whether it is a color or whether it is using your senses. But use that 15 minutes in the day before you go to your dinner to be grateful and know yourself. During that time, I want you to also explore about knowing yourself. What are your patterns? Do you have triggers that lean you towards nervous talk, which then leads to nervous eating, or nervous wine or alcohol consumption earlier in the meal that just kind of mellows yourself out? Know what some of those triggers are in your body and then alleviate them. Physical exercise is always great on every day. And you know me, I am a proponent of you getting that minimum exercise a week that the Heart Association and everybody recommends of 150 minutes a week, 30 minutes a day, 5 times a week. If that is new to you, that's a start point. But physical exercise before you go to your Thanksgiving meal is a way to help set yourself up for being in the flow of feeding yourself in a meaningful way. Burn a few calories before you go. The 4th thing is to be participatory. Pitch in. Know your strengths. Ring up your host or hostess before the meal. If they haven't already asked you if you wanted to bring something, offer. Don't wait to be asked, but offer. And if cooking is not your thing, then say, hey, I'm here to set the table. I'm here to set in place maybe some flowers or some decorations, or happy to pitch in for the cleanup crew. Whatever works for your skills, present them. Don't wait to be asked. You go ahead and be proactive in reaching out to your host or hostess. This one is I actually pay attention to this as a personal strategy. And strategically position yourself. Now, there's 2 areas on this, depending on your group, okay? One is, for me, strategically positioning myself not in front of the appetizers. You see, I'm a nibbler, so I know myself very well. I love a cheese ball. I love cold shrimp. I love nuts, all of those kind of things. And I can easily take myself down the rabbit hole of overindulging at the appetizer table. So figure out, what do you lean to? Are you a sugar? Are you a sweet or a salty, a sour person? If that's where you head towards, I would ask that you head away from, so that you aren't over consuming before the main meal. So that's a really big thing. The second thing in strategically placing yourself for a healthier experience doesn't pertain to food. It pertains to the conversation, which we will talk about managing holiday conversations ahead in my presentation. But just in this context, figure out ahead of time, who is it you want to sit by? Now, I got to tell you, I'm blessed in my group, my family and friends. I'll sit next to any of them and all day long have a friendly conversation. But not all families and not all groups are set up that way. There might be an uncle that needs to bring politics, or somebody that has a very strong position on you shouldn't eat this or you shouldn't eat this, or it's religion, or now it's COVID, whatever. Take a reflection, gang, before you get to your holiday dinner. Who, if you sat next to them, would really make this festivity over the top special, and see if you can't manage that. The last two are all around eating, and it's eating slowly. We get into the conversation, we're passing dishes. We can be taking that fork to our mouth so quickly that before you know it, we don't even remember where we started on our plate. So slow your breath down, lay the fork on the plate periodically, and remember to savor your food. Second helpings. My suggestion for second helpings is don't do it. What I do recommend is that you bring a to-go container or use a paper plate from the dessert and say, I'm going to take this second helping. I love this green bean casserole or this macaroni and cheese or whatever the case may be. And just arrange with your host or hostess ahead of time. But if there are second helpings available, you're going to take yours to go and then use that as a next meal as opposed to over consuming on Thanksgiving. All right, let's move on to ways to better manage our holiday conversations. As I just mentioned, some households and some gatherings bring people of opposing views. Well, it's fine for us to engage with others that have opposing views as long as it doesn't create drama or negativity in the experience. So how can we avoid that? Well, I believe there are 4 ways that we can do that. First, always be aware of your own personal emotions. Develop and practice active listening. Become a storyteller and set ground rules. Our experience always begins with us. So knowing what our emotions are about a holiday is the first place to begin. Checking in with yourself. Do you just get anxious just even thinking about a holiday? Why? Ask yourself, what is it that happened to me earlier in my life that I just can't deal with the holidays? Go ahead and get a journal out and write those emotions down. Allow yourself to be vulnerable. Allow yourself to truly be honest with yourself when you're checking in. Friends, we all carry baggage. It's unavoidable being a human. There are things that have occurred to us all throughout our life, and those experiences shape and mold us who we are as we continue to live longer. Just because we've tucked it into the back of our mind, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have an impact. So if you have not done that kind of reflective journaling, I really encourage you to that. And the first place to begin is to be aware of how you feel. And that's hard. Give it a try. The second area to talk about your own emotions is reflecting on who else will be there. Is there a family member that you just don't prefer that person? Or is there somebody that you know that will be there that always says, oh, you really shouldn't eat that. I see that you've gained some weight in the last year, or something along that line, that it just always rolls off their tongue. It's like they don't realize they're saying it and it's being received in a negative fashion. They actually may be thinking that they're giving guidance in a loving way, but it's the way that we perceive and absorb some conversations with others that leave a negative, lasting impact. Write those down so that when you are next to Aunt Betty or whomever this person may be, it's like, just recognize the likelihood that something's going to come out of her mouth that I just shouldn't take it that way. Just let it roll off your back. And by doing a writing exercise in your journal that only you will see is a great way to manage your emotions before the day even gets underway. Becoming an active listener is much more challenging than you may realize. You may believe that you're a really good listener, but I ask you to hang in here with me for just a moment to see if there's some micro shifts that you may be able to improve upon. Have you ever been in a conversation that before you've even finished your thought, another has moved on to what they think you are going to say and has already started talking? Or have you done that to another? That while you're sitting there, you think you're listening, but you're already anticipating the words that are going to come out of that other individual's mouth. We need to slow our thoughts down. Becoming an active listener requires patience. It requires not speaking right away. Giving nonverbal, in particular, body language that you're looking the person in the eye. Maybe there's a gentle nod of the head or a soft smile. Or verbally, you may reflect their words back so that person understands they are being heard. They are actually being listened to. So as you reflect words back, you can then ask questions. Well, why is it that you feel this way? Or what else are you thinking about this? You can work the words back. So when a person gets that reflected, their own words reflected back, again, they feel more valued, they feel more included, and they feel more loved, that they're being actually listened to. Take note, we all do this. We get busy in our own routines, our own schedules, and we're listening with half an ear. So this holiday, I invite you to use both of your ears and really listen. And then always smile. Give that gentle smile so the other person knows what they're saying is of importance to you and that you value that they are being open and sharing with you. Becoming a storyteller. So one of the things around Thanksgiving dinner tables is, what's the conversation look like? You know, what are people talking about? If you're in a group that leans towards politics and religion or current events, there are times and there are family members and friends that those are viable and productive conversations. But are they really necessary around the Thanksgiving table when we're gathering with others, sharing unconditional love for being together? So here are 3 prompts of how did the first Thanksgiving meal you ever prepared turn out? Or what was your best Thanksgiving ever and why? And have you ever spent Thanksgiving alone? How did that feel? Go ahead and tell the story, especially if there are young people around. You're setting the tone on how they can communicate around a holiday table by becoming a storyteller. Another idea is to use a story around someone who isn't able to be with you. Tell a story at the dinner table about maybe someone that has passed. Maybe it's a grandparent that is no longer with us, and you can talk about, oh, she or he always did this. Bring that generational aspect into your storytelling. Make it more of an adventure and an experience as opposed to idle chit-chat. Give it meaning. Setting ground rules in managing our conversations, I think, is essential, not only around a holiday table, but oftentimes, especially in today's world, anytime groups are going to be together. But this Thanksgiving, again, there are a lot of different feelings out there. Setting ground rules helps us avoid drama and unintentional hurt feelings. And these are to be set with your host or hostess ahead of time. So if there are any questions that you have around the COVID protocol, or if you're the host or hostess of that, Let your attendees know what the COVID protocol is. If it's in your home, you're the boss. You get to decide. If someone is comfortable with that and wants to attend, great. If someone isn't comfortable with that and chooses not to attend, that's okay too. Tell them you care about them. How can you still share some of the Thanksgiving feeling with them, even if you're not going to be together on that day? Call ahead to your host and hostess if there are uncomfortable subjects you really want to avoid, that you're just concerned that with past practice in the group that some of these subjects may come up. Talk about it with the home that you're going to so that they know that you're uncomfortable when those conversations have come up in the past. And then create a code. Either create a code that's a nonverbal or maybe a word that can just be softly inserted into a conversation that the people you're with understand. I'll give you a clue in my own relationship with Chris and I. For some reason, if you were to talk to our family, it's like, oh, there's the look. It's like when it's time to go, Chris will casually look across the room at me and there'll be this soft look in his eye. And though no one sees his head nod yes, but I know he's ready to go. So if you need to have a code with the people you're traveling with, go ahead and set that in place. And over the course of the time, it will become a practice. But by setting ground rules, we're able to keep ourselves in the queue two ways. One, to avoid drama and unintentional hurt feelings, but also to keep us healthy around the gathering, that we've created those ground rules that we're not going to overindulge, we're not going to overstay. You know, we're going to be here a respectful amount of time, and then we're going to move on in our day. Bottom line, giving thanks, not just on Thanksgiving Day, but every day of your life is, to me, a big part of Thanksgiving. Appreciate and never take for granted all that you have. I think that this quote is, it just resonates so deeply in my own heart, but that's really, to me, what Thanksgiving is all about. And using the Thanksgiving holiday to set yourself up for a lifestyle that you don't take things for granted and that you appreciate all that you have is truly the biggest health benefit of a Thanksgiving celebration. All right, let's go to the kitchen. You guys, you know me, I am a retired sugar peddler, and I do have an incredible sweet tooth. But as I age, and since I have laid down my professional baking life, I've started to make some tweaks in how I feed my husband, Chris, and I, so that we don't get overloaded. We want to be able to enjoy a wide variety of foods. And at the holiday time, it's really easy to get bogged down. We have the traditional recipes that are always going to be there, but do they have to be made the same way every year? My suggestion is no, they don't. The families change. Some families will say, don't ever change grandma's sweet potato casserole recipe. I get that, but also respect the diet that you're trying to eat and see if you can't substitute maybe some of these ideas going forward. I've been trying them on my family now for a few years and seems to still be working for them. So here we go. Well, bottom line, if there wasn't any pie, then did you really celebrate Thanksgiving? So remember, from my past, it is all about pie. And I love to make pie. I think pie is the language of love. And during this unconditional loving holiday of Thanksgiving, there's no dessert that is more known than pie at Thanksgiving. So here's some ingredients to shift. And I speak from my own personal experience, and not only from trying to, hone in some of the ingredients at this overindulgent day, we're going into the Christmas season or the December season, depending on everyone's holiday celebrations, but there are just a boatload more sweets around. So use some of these ideas. I encourage you when you're making pie for Thanksgiving, they will work just fine. So in pumpkin pie in particular, and pecan pie, actually, let me back up. In pumpkin and pecan pie, the two most noted pies for Thanksgiving, they call for Caro syrup traditionally and white sugar. And I really encourage you to step away from them. Both of them have a real high glycemic load and have a real over the top sweetness. And if you are working on trying to lower that glycemic load, I think brown sugar and honey, and I didn't write this down, but sucanat is also another, which is a natural brown sugar that still has the molasses strap in it. You can substitute those in both your pumpkin and pecan pie. This is what I have found in using both of these sweeteners in those two pies, that, for example, if the recipe actually calls for a cup, using in this case a cup of the traditional sweeteners, I will use either honey or brown sugar or sucanat, and I'll reduce it by 25%. So I'll only use 3/4 of a cup. And the pie is still just absolutely yummy and delicious and has a nice sweetness to it. Give it a try. In your pumpkin pie, if you have someone that is not eating eggs, if you have a vegan person in particular, you can substitute for the egg 3 tablespoons of tapioca flour, and it'll still give the pie a little bit of gloss. Or you can substitute applesauce, and I would use a 1/2 cup of applesauce in your pumpkin pie instead of eggs, and it will bake up fine. If you want to make it a dairy-free pie, give evaporated coconut milk a try, and your pies will take on a little bit of a different mouthfeel. It'll be a little lighter, but still very, very yummy and delicious. Also, if you get coconut cream, you can whip that to make for your whipped cream on your desserts at Thanksgiving, again, for dairy-free guests. I think that's one of the things to think about as you shift ingredients, whether you are knowledgeable. Will there be a gluten-free or gluten-sensitive person in attendance? Will there be a vegan? Will there be an egg allergic or a nut allergic? Be aware of who is attending the meal with you so that you can create something that meets all of those dietary sensitivities. Sweet potato casserole. I tell you what, sweet potato casserole to me ought to be a dessert. Traditional sweet potato casserole is incredibly decadent and incredibly sweet. And so I would suggest a couple of different variations here that can lower, again, the load on the traditional sweet potato casserole. And instead of using brown sugar or white sugar in it, is to put just a drizzle of maple syrup or honey in it, cut back on the sweetness in there big time. And one of the ways to do that is actually, instead of boiling your sweet potatoes, to roast them. So when we roast things, it brings the natural sugars higher in that particular ingredient. So the sweet potatoes roasted will taste much sweeter than if you are boiling those sweet potatoes before you mash them. So give that a try. I would also add an egg to give it a little bit more mouth texture, and then cutting back in any creams in it and substituting coconut oil or almond milk for that. And easily you can make the topping, the streusel topping, gluten-free by substituting oats and almond flour instead of regular flour. So the almond flour will add just a little bit more nutty flavor in them as well. And as you're roasting the sweet potatoes, friends, I recommend that you also toast your pecans in the oven for a little bit at the same time. That will bring an earthier, more dominant nut flavor to all of your nuts for that to be in the topping. So give that a try, lightening the load on sweet potato casserole. All right, mashed potatoes. Who doesn't love them? And that's really hard not to go back for seconds on. I get you on that. I'm not any different than most of the people that love mashed potatoes. But we already are having a meal that has taken us around the block a time or two, and our caloric intake is far higher on this meal than some of us may eat in 2 days. So where can you make it healthier and have you not go into that food coma so quickly? And my suggestion this year is to cut your mashed potatoes in half, using half cauliflower and half russet potatoes. Personally, I would still leave the skins on. I always leave the skins on my potatoes and mashed potatoes for that extra fiber in them. But taking half of the starch of potatoes away and inserting the light vegetable matter of cauliflower is really, really tasty. And then if you use low-fat cream cheese to bulk it up a little, you can also use buttermilk. I don't have any issue using cream. I think that a little cream is not a bad thing. So you can still add your other things in there, but by taking half of the potatoes away, you're going to lower those heavy, high carbs that come from the potatoes that really help us want that afternoon or evening nap. So as we start to wind down here, I've tried to provide you in today's conversation some information on how you can come in better tune with yourself. And part of that really goes back to always having a movement plan. I'm always going to have this slide in my webinars. I want you to really focus on making a movement plan between now and into the cold weather. Find something that works for you and stick to it. So there are those 5 steps. Figure out the number of days that you can exercise, and then make a commitment that you will exercise. Turn that into an action statement. Identify the best days for you to do that, because we want it to work that it's convenient into your schedule. So don't just say, well, I think I might do it tomorrow. Really look at the 7 days of a week and then block out in your organizer, I will do something at this particular time. Again, inserting the I will, making it an action statement. Again, moving on to 3, determine the duration. That's not going to be the same every day, but here's what I encourage you not to do. Don't get hung up that if the day comes and you said, I'm going to work out and move for 30 intentional minutes today, but I only can get 15 in it, so I'm not going to do it. I'll push it off tomorrow. Don't do that. Get in whatever you can. 15 is better than 0. Do not, I repeat, do not look at that as a failure. Look at it, I did show up. It's only a day. I only could get 15 instead of 30, but I did something. Be proud of what you accomplish. Choosing your mode of exercise. It needs to be easy. It needs to be fun. It's something that when you get into the groove of it, the time can just clip on by. It's going to be different for everyone, and it's also going to change based on the seasons of the year. Walking and hiking right now for Thanksgiving for the next 2 weeks is the best form of exercise, in my opinion. Get out, enjoy those cool weathers. I know the statement, you've heard me say it in the past, there's no bad weather, there's only poor clothing choices. My guess is you're pretty grateful that you have a closet that's filled with clothes and drawers that are filled with clothes. Put on a couple layers, get up, get out the door, and enjoy yourself. But make it personal. I'm not going to tell you what you should do. You can look at Instagram and Facebook and all kinds of videos, and they're going to tell you what to do. It doesn't matter. It needs to be your plan for it to work. But I encourage you to continue developing your movement plan. Well, it's a happy Thanksgiving. Like I said, I really encourage you to enjoy this Thanksgiving with others. Be proactive. Go back to the beginning of this conversation and check in with yourself with that self-gratitude and be really proactive of better understanding yourself this holiday season. Remember to always keep things in perspective. Your perspective is just as valuable as another person's perspective. Please don't don't say to someone else, they're wrong, is how I should say that. Their perspective is right for them. Learn how to have those conversations with others by keeping everything in perspective, that we are more alike than we are different. Remember what is important on this particular day, friend. Remember what is really important. It's the gathering. It's not the food. The food is great, and it's what draws us together around a table. But it's the people we exchange with, whether in person, whether through Zoom, whether through a letter or a phone call. It's the interaction with another, being grateful and thankful that they're in your lives and that you have the life that you have. That's what's important. Before and after your Thanksgiving celebration, take time for yourself. We've talked a great deal this morning about how to set yourself up for taking time pre-holiday. Revisit those action steps and go ahead and use them after the holiday as well. Reflect back on the day. What did you most enjoy? I'm sure there might be something you didn't enjoy. Well, why? Acknowledge that. Go back to your journal. Write these things down. Remember, we're now in the kickoff season of the high pressure of the holiday season, going all the way through New Year's. The whole goal of my webinar series is for each of us to be more present, to be more caring about ourselves and the lives that we get to live as we end this year going into 2022. And then laugh and love. If you can't laugh with others, laugh at yourself or do both. Always love another, but most importantly, at the end of the day, my friend, learn to love yourself even more than you did when you got up in the morning, because within you, there is more love to be expressed to you, meant for you. Well, that brings today's webinar to a close. Thank you for listening to some of my tips and tools. I hope you might have had an angle that was refreshed in your mind, or you have found promise in yourself to make a commitment to make this year's Thanksgiving celebration a healthier and happier one. Don't forget, my next webinar, the third of the series, will be December the 10th, and we will talk about bell ringing and the neighborly well-wishing, and then you bet, more fun in the kitchen. Now, just as I gave you some Thanksgiving ingredient shifts for Thanksgiving, I'll share some of my more decadent tips and delights in the Christmas one in the December webinar. So I hope you'll register or share this information with another. Get them signed up and so that they can get the information as well. Well, I thank you very, very much for joining. As I've said, the Coreview Way. It's all about living lifelong exceptionally, being an enthusiast for aging healthy and happy, and discovering the path between our fork and feet. I wish you the best of days. May your life bring you more ease, and may you live happy, healthy, and whole. Thank you so much, and I will talk with you soon.